Hello and welcome to Ryno's Ravens preview. This being the first edition of the 2023 season. Week 1, the Ravens will see the Houston Texans coming into M&T Bank Stadium. As you can see, I'm on BaltimoreRavens.com. Let's take a look at the injury report. Not as many names listed as I think there usually are, especially when you get later in the season, but there are a few. Humphrey, we knew he would be out, or we suspected, because he had foot surgery, I guess about 3 weeks ago-ish. Now, Stanley and Odell Beckham Jr. are also listed on here, but it does look like they were full participants Friday, so they're probably going to play. Somewhat of a new one is Mark Andrews and a quad injury. The extent of the injury, we don't really know. I mean, most coaches in general are fairly tight-lipped about what they report about injuries, and John Harbaugh is no exception to that. But I will show an article about that a little later. Let's take a look at the depth chart following the final cut downs of training camp and moving into the regular season. I think the big, maybe not surprise, but I guess surprise from when we first started looking at this team going into training camp. John Simpson, it would appear, has won the starting job at left guard, replacing Ben Powers, which really disappointed they let him go, but you kind of understand with all the money they had to pay to Lamar Jackson. Mr. 260, we should call him. Simpson was with the Raiders last year and was not invited back. He said he was invited here, and he has beaten out I can't even pronounce that name, but he's beaten out other players like Ben Cleveland. Ben Cleveland has been here for a while. Somewhat disappointing that he's been here for this long and developed with this organization, and he still can't get a starting job. It's not great. Now, McCary, in my opinion, is probably going to be a better option here at left guard, but McCary can do a lot of things. He can play center, did have some snap issues, but he's filled in very nicely at just about every position when somebody needed to not be up a day. So it is good to have somebody like that, a swing guy, that can play multiple positions on the offensive line and fairly well. Now, where's the running backs? Running backs are all the way at the bottom. 3 are listed here: Dobbins, Edwards, Hill. No Gordon. Gordon did not make the 53-man roster, which kind of makes sense. Dobbins and Edwards were going to be the primary ball carriers, and Justice Hill's ability to play other positions, for instance, special teams, definitely contributed to Justice Hill making the roster this year and Gordon not. Now, some of these pass catchers, yes, Andrews is suspected to be a little limited, not too limited, but since you got Beckham and Bateman and Aguilar and Flowers and Duvernay is probably your 5th wide receiver, and then you also have Likely as a tight end as well, and then you have your 2 feature running backs and Lamar Jackson you're going to have to feed touches to. We're probably going to see a little less of Mark Andrews anyway, just because there's so many more options. So it's probably not that much of a deal as it was in the past. Previous seasons when, Andrews has an injury. Well, he's not the only guy now. Lamar does have other targets. He has Odell Beckham and Bateman. We'll see how well they play, both coming off of injuries last year. Beckham with the ACL and Bateman with the whatever it was. I don't even remember. I feel like he's been injured the whole time he's here. This will be his third year, and I think he's played 4-5 games, if that. So we'll see there. Zay Flowers, am kind of, I want to say that interested to see what he can do on the field. He's a relatively small wide receiver, but sometimes you find one of those small wide receivers and they play with a lot of anger. Probably because they've been picked on, especially on a football team, about how small they are. So they kind of play with a giant chip on their shoulder. Hopefully he can take that out on the Texans this week. Looking at the defense, corner is going to be a kind of a sore spot, because especially with Humphrey not active, at least for this game. Bring in a few veteran type corners, and supposedly with the addition of Chuck Smith, if I remember the name correctly, as a pass rushing coordinator, specialist, coach man, pass rushing should be a little better. Now you also have another year on Owe, and now Jabo on the other side, hopefully healthy, and Clowney to throw in a mix. Sounds like pressure is going to be better this year. I hope that is the case, especially for this first game. 1, you want to get off to a good start. 2, rookie quarterback CJ Stroud for the Texans. You definitely want to pressure those young guys. Now, you probably do want to play a little bit of contain on him because it's not like he's a statue in the pocket, and that's Mr. Stroud. Not quite a Lamar Jackson, but he's not exactly a Peyton Manning or a Tom Brady that's just going to stand in the pocket the whole time. So, you see on the depth chart, Clowney is like second string. But, again, with the rookie quarterback, potentially you may see Owe, Ojabo, and Clowney on the field at the same time, rushing at the same time, which could potentially put more pressure on young Mr. Stroud. All right, let's take a look at some of the news the Ravens have posted on their website. This is just a news section. Let's go to the article written by Ryan Mink, editorial director, in which he talks about a little bit about Mark Andrews' injury. And this is really like a conversation he had with John Harbaugh. And John Harbaugh, being John Harbaugh, is like, I'm going to let the injury report speak for itself. All right, cool. Thanks, John. Way to give us something. But he also did offer this. Some of the reasons why players don't practice. There is a difference between like needing to practice and wanting to practice. Players are going to want to practice. They're going to want to play. But do they need to? Does Mark Andrews necessarily need to practice? Tough to say. With his talent and his past experience, no, he doesn't really need to practice. But being in a new offense, potentially, there are I'm sure the timing plays The playbook is going to be different. So to practice to a certain extent. Now, has he gotten enough of it? Probably. He's probably gotten enough of it over the summer. So, should be okay. Nobody's really thinking that he's not going to play here. It's more precautionary. Quad's hurting him a little bit. Okay, well, you don't really need to practice. So, we're not going to have you practice, but we are going to have to list you on injury report. That is kind of what Harbaugh was alluding to. Now, also in this article, Ryan Mink talks about Humphrey. He said August 16th, Mr. Mink says the surgery was for Humphrey's foot. Now, supposed to be about a month-ish recovery time, so potentially could be available for next week's game against the Bengals. That is just really a little bit of speculation, though. It's just because you're done rehabbing and you're done healing. Are you up to game speed? Mostly because you had like a month off where you weren't at game speed, and maybe even a few weeks before that where you were a little limited because something was hurting. So while it is possible that he could play against the Bengals, I think that's a little unlikely. But who knows? There's not a whole lot else to talk about. Maybe a little bit about the Texans. There's no use in really talking about standings yet anyway. But everybody seems to think that this is going to be a blowout. Partially because the additions the Ravens have had all these weapons for Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is healthy because he's got a big old fat contract. Todd Monken, new offensive coordinator, supposed to have this more pro-style, high point-scoring offense. Texans going to be able to stop it. Well, they don't necessarily have that many players noteworthy. A few of them on defense, but they have enough to cover all the weapons that Lamar Jackson has. Well, we have seen in the past years that, oh, cool. I don't know how many times I've restarted this stupid-ass computer over the past week because some stupid-ass asshole at Windows says they want to update all their systems all the time. How about just go away? I'm doing something. Where the hell was I? I'm talking about the Texans and Ravens offensive line. You want to throw to all these targets, well, you got to pass block. Not exactly something the Ravens offensive line has done well, even when healthy, past few years. They are more of a run-blocking offensive line. But some of that can be helped by a new offensive coordinator with some new scheming. Hopefully, and Stanley was listed on the injury report with that ankle still hindered by the ankle, which is annoying. I think that's going to be huge key, as it usually is. The trenches are where a lot of the games are decided. Can your offensive line block for your running backs, for your quarterback? And can you get pressure on the opposing quarterback and get in the backfield and take some running backs down? That's going to be huge for me. Can the Ravens offensive line block for Lamar Jackson and allow him to throw at will to his plethora of weapons? And can, with the addition of Jadeveon Clowney, can the Ravens defensive line put enough pressure on the Texans and CJ Stroud to be able to win this game? Well, luckily, football season's here, man. Right around the corner tomorrow. Well, it starts for most people tomorrow. If you're a Lions fan or a Chiefs fan, it started a few days ago. For the rest of us, it starts tomorrow. We'll do, I think this is going to wrap it up for this show. My review show, probably Monday. It's a little tough, and partly it almost really doesn't feel like football season because the Orioles are doing so well, which is fantastic. Maybe it's just me. I like baseball better. I like watching Ravens football, but I love my Orioles baseball. I have to do an Orioles and a Ravens show Monday. It is what it is, I guess. Be sure to like and subscribe. I am the Angry Ryno. Fly, Ravens, fly.